The war is not out there. It never was. It's not in the economy, it's not in the politics, it's not in your competitors, your critics, or your circumstances. The war is within. The battlefield is your mind. And until you win there, you will lose everywhere else. Because a man can have every opportunity in the world, but if his mind is undisciplined, he will sabotage every single one. A woman can have gifts, connections, talent, even time, but if her thoughts are against her, her life will be too. The mind is not your servant by default. It is a wild animal. It chases fear. It feeds on doubt. It latches on to shame. It magnifies problems and minimizes potential. Left unchecked, it will turn a sunrise into a storm and a challenge into a coffin. This is why your first and greatest work is not your goals, not your business, not your brand. It's your mind. You must learn to rule it like a kingdom. Because if you don't, it will rule you like a tyrant. You must learn to recognize its voice, the voice of the imposter, the victim, the saboteur, and you must rise above it like a general standing over chaos, refusing to bow to panic. You must decide every day what thoughts are allowed to live in you. Most people never make that decision. They let their mind run wild, untamed, unchecked. They believe every thought is truth. Every fear is prophecy. Every doubt is a mirror. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, stuck, scattered, and small. But not you. You're waking up now. You're beginning to see that your greatest power is not what happens to you, but how you respond. And response begins in the mind. So ask yourself, what thoughts have you allowed to become your identity? What inner dialogue have you rehearsed so often you now believe it's truth? What mental habits have become your autopilot, dragging you through days of anxiety, distraction, and hesitation? It's time to reclaim the throne, to take your mind off autopilot and back into deliberate command. Because you were not created to be at the mercy of emotions, impulses, or internal noise. You were created to lead yourself. And that leadership starts not in your actions, but in your awareness. The mind is not evil. It's just untrained. And what you don't train, trains you. So if you don't teach your mind where to focus, it will fixate on the worst. If you don't program it with truth, it will default to fear. If you don't plant thoughts of growth, power, peace, it will grow weeds of scarcity, shame, and regret. You must become the gardener. You must decide what lives in the soil of your subconscious. Because your outer world will always reflect your inner conditioning. Every habit, every pattern, every relationship, every dollar, every decision, all of it echoes what you believe. And what you believe is nothing more than what you've repeated to yourself consciously or unconsciously 1,000 times. So here's the truth no one taught you in school. You can change the script. You can interrupt the thought. You can reject the belief. You can break the loop. You can stop the spiral. And you can train your mind to serve your future instead of your fear. This is not some luxury reserved for monks or gurus. This is survival. This is success. This is how legends are made, not by accident, but by alignment. By mastering the mind before the mind masters them. They don't wake up hoping for clarity, they generate it. They don't wish for confidence, they build it through inner language. They don't avoid fear, they face it, challenge it, interrogate it, and transform it into fuel. And you can do the same. You must do the same. Because until you do, nothing else will matter. Your strategies won't stick. Your vision won't last. Your goals will become ghosts haunting you, but never becoming real. Because everything begins and ends in the mind. The thoughts you entertain are the life you create. So take your mind back. Train it like a soldier. Feed it like a temple. Guard it like a fortress. Lead it like a nation. Because that mind, your mind, holds the keys to every door you've ever wanted to walk through. The question is, who's holding those keys? Is it you? Or is it the voice of fear? Is it the disciplined, future-focused version of you? Or is it the lazy, reactive shadow of who you used to be? That's the battle. That's the war. And until you win there, no victory will feel real. No success will feel safe. No dream will last. But if you do win there, if you master the mind, there is nothing in this world you cannot build, become, or break through. Because once the mind obeys, everything else falls in line. Once the mind obeys, the body follows. The habits align. The discipline locks in. The distractions lose their flavor. The excuses dissolve under the heat of your focus. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes inevitable. Because when your mind is mastered, the war is already won before you step foot onto the battlefield. This is why the great ones don't fear pressure. They've already overcome something far heavier, themselves. They've battled doubt in the silence. They've endured storms in the dark. They've stood in front of the mirror and refused to be lied to by their limitations. And every time their old self whispered, "You can't," they answered back, "Watch me." You must speak to your mind like that. Not passively, not with politeness, but with power. Because your mind is listening. It is always listening. And if you feed it confusion, it will give you chaos. If you feed it clarity, it will give you command. If you tell it you're tired, it will shut down. But if you tell it you're ready, it will open gates inside you that you didn't even know were there. You must train it daily. Not once, not when it's convenient, every day. Because your mind does not stay strong by accident, it stays strong by repetition. Just like muscles, just like habits, just like mastery. And you don't train it once in the morning and then forget about it. You train it all day long, with every choice, with every reaction, with every moment of silence where your thoughts try to run the show again. You step in. You interrupt. You redirect. That's how warriors are built, one thought at a time. You must become the gatekeeper, standing watch over what gets in. Because every thought that enters your mind is either building your destiny or breaking it. There is no neutral. There is no idle. Every thought has a trajectory. It either pushes you forward or pulls you down. And if you don't choose them consciously, they will choose you. They'll choose you based on your past, based on your pain, based on the world's noise. And before you know it, you're living a life that isn't yours, thinking thoughts that aren't yours, fighting battles that never should have been yours. But that ends now. From this moment forward, you reclaim command. You reclaim authorship of your own mental script. And if that means rewiring everything you've been taught, so be it. If it means deleting the lies you've lived under, do it. If it means sitting in silence until the chaos dies down, then sit in that silence like a throne, because the silence is where the work begins. Not the motivational high, not the external noise, not the surface level affirmations that never touch your soul. The real work, it starts when you face the thoughts you've avoided, when you pull them out into the light and ask, who gave you permission to live in my mind? What have you cost me? What have you stolen from my future? And then you evict them. You replace them. You install truth. You install power. You install a vision that is so vivid, so magnetic, so aligned with who you are becoming, that every lie has no choice but to flee. Because darkness cannot survive where light stands firm. And that's who you are now. You are not your fear. You are not your doubt. You are not the version of you that spirals when things get hard. You are the one who stays, who decides, who leads, who masters, who commands. And from this point forward, your mind is no longer your master. It is your servant. It will work for your dreams. It will reinforce your standards. It will defend your peace, because you have taken your rightful place on the throne. And you will not be moved. You will not be moved, not by fear, not by fatigue, not by fleeting emotions that try to convince you today is the day to quit. Because you've tasted alignment. You've felt the fire that comes from living on purpose, from thinking on purpose, from choosing your thoughts with the same precision an architect chooses his foundation. And now, you build. You build a mind that is fortified, not just focused fortified, because focus gets shaken by distraction. But fortification, that's when your mind becomes a wall. Nothing can penetrate without your permission. You think you need more motivation? You don't. You need mental security. You need to know that when adversity hits, your thoughts don't abandon you. You need to know that when delay shows up, your faith doesn't collapse. You need to know that your internal world is so rehearsed in strength, in vision, in clarity, that no external storm can take you back to smallness. This is the inner gym. This is where elite thinking is forged. When others are scrolling, you're training. When others are comparing, you're creating. When others are triggered, you're tactical. Because your mind is not for rent, not to fear, not to doubt, not to scarcity or self-sabotage. It belongs to you. And if you don't own it, someone else will. Society will. Marketing will. Old trauma will. That voice from years ago will. And you'll be living a life that serves their narrative, not your mission. You have to fight for it. Every morning, before your feet touch the ground, command your mind. Before the noise of the world gets in, declare who you are. Before fear creeps in, anchor your identity in truth. Not in feelings, not in followers, not in feedback. In truth. Because when you anchor to truth, storms lose their grip. Disappointment loses its sting. Setbacks become signals instead of sentences. You see clearly, because a trained mind sees through the fog. It filters the lies. It sniffs out the traps. It reminds you, you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. You are not your emotions. You are the observer. You are not what happens. You are what you choose to make of it. And once you know that, truly know it, you are free. Free from the prison of your past. Free from the panic of uncertainty. Free from the chaos of scattered thinking. And in that freedom, there is fury. The kind of fury that doesn't destroy, it builds. It builds businesses. It builds bodies. It builds movements. It builds futures. Because now, your mind is not just under control. It's under commission. It's been reassigned. It doesn't just protect you from danger. It propels you toward destiny. And every thought that used to break you now becomes brickwork in your empire. Every doubt you used to drown in now becomes data that sharpens your strategy. Every old voice that said, not you, now echoes in a chamber you no longer live in. You've changed the locks. You've changed the narrative. You've changed the terms of engagement. And from here forward, every step you take is not random. It's routed through a mind that has been reclaimed. A mind no longer enslaved by yesterday's wiring, but renewed, rebuilt, reforged in fire. And fire purifies. It burns away illusion. It strips the mind of its lies, of its limitations, of its laziness, until all that remains is truth, forged into steel, the kind of steel that does not bend when life tests you, when people doubt you, when the world forgets you. You don't need to be remembered right now. You need to become unforgettable. And that begins in thought, not action. Action follows thought. Behavior follows belief. Life follows language. So listen to what you tell yourself when it's quiet. Are your words bricks or blades? Are you building yourself or breaking yourself every time you think? Because here's what most never grasp. You become whatever you repeat. The mind doesn't differentiate between truth and repetition. It believes what it hears, most especially when it comes from you. So if your daily soundtrack is hesitation, guilt, doubt, fear, your life will mirror that chaos. But if your mind wakes up to truth, to vision, to ownership, to purpose, your life will organize itself around that alignment. That is the secret. Control the narrative, and you control the outcome. Dominate your thoughts, and you dominate your path. You don't need more hours in a day. You need more order in your mind, because a distracted mind will turn a 24-hour day into a disaster. But a trained mind, it can turn 1 hour into an empire. And this is the difference between potential and power. Potential sits in chaos. Power is focused, directed, ruthless. And now it's your time to walk in that power, to become the architect of your thought life, to stop renting your mental space to opinions and start designing it like a palace. What goes on your walls? What music plays in your head? What conversations are allowed inside? What thoughts sit at your mental table? If you don't decide, the world will. And the world doesn't care about your greatness. The world profits off your confusion. So you must take it back, brick by brick, breath by breath, discipline by discipline, until your mind becomes a fortress of forward motion, not a museum of pain, not a jail of self-doubt, a command center for your highest self. That's where your legacy begins, not in action. In thinking, that leads to right action. Because once your thoughts are aligned, your words will follow. Your habits will follow. Your finances will follow. Your relationships, your boundaries, your direction, all of it follows thought. So don't ask, what should I do today? Ask, what thoughts must I hold today? Don't ask, what should I fix out there? Ask, what must I command in here? Because the battlefield was never out there. It's always been here. And now, you're winning. And winning here in the hidden, silent, sacred chambers of the mind is the only victory that guarantees all others. You can fake strength on the outside. You can build a body. You can wear wealth. You can talk the talk. But if the voice inside your head doesn't honor your greatness, eventually the mask will slip and everything will collapse beneath the weight of what you never mastered, your own mind. You don't need to pretend anymore. You need to possess. Not a persona, but presence. Not a strategy, but sovereignty. Because sovereignty means nothing controls you unless you allow it. And the most dangerous thing you've ever allowed to control you wasn't another person. It was a thought. One single thought. I'm not good enough. It's too late for me. I'll never get there. That thought dug its roots in. It grew branches that touched everything. And before you knew it, you were making decisions through a lens of limitation, avoiding risk, settling for crumbs, replaying old wounds like they were gospel. But not anymore. That thought is on trial now. You're holding it up to the light and demanding evidence, demanding truth. Because if it's not rooted in who you can become, it's not worthy to stay. You don't argue with it. You evict it. You don't entertain it. You replace it. Because you've built something stronger, a new inner code, a new internal environment where only power is permitted, only clarity, only courage, only creation. Because when you control your mind, you create the future before it happens. You walk like it's already done. You speak like it's already real. You move like your destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And every choice begins in thought. So think with intention. Think with intensity. Think with identity. Because your thoughts don't just influence your life, they are your life. And the moment you grasp that, truly grasp that you are no longer a product of your past, you are the producer of your future. You are the architect of the reality you once thought was impossible. You are the author of a story no one else was qualified to write. So write it with precision, with conviction, with zero tolerance for mental parasites. You've given them enough time, enough space, enough voice. Now they're gone. And in their place, steel, fire, vision, peace, unshakable, undeniable command. This is the new you, not created by chance, but forged by decision and protected by a mind that no longer breaks under pressure because it's built to handle power. Because you didn't just learn how to survive your mind. You learned how to master it. And now your life is yours. Yours fully, finally, and without apology. no longer driven by impulses that hijack your day, no longer led by doubts that disguise themselves as logic, no longer pulled by voices that echo your fears louder than your faith. You now move with intention, not reaction. You now speak from alignment, not anxiety. You now choose deliberately what thoughts get to breathe inside your brain. And when you live like this, you start to feel it, that edge, that clarity, that power humming just beneath your skin. Not loud, not frantic certain. You walk into the same world, but everything is different. Because you're different. You're not hoping anymore. You're not waiting for confidence to magically appear. You're commanding it through repetition, through environment, through ruthless mental hygiene. You no longer entertain thoughts that contradict your mission. You no longer give time to ideas that drain your energy. You no longer surrender your peace for the comfort of familiar negativity. Because you know now, everything is mindset. Your future is mindset. Your income is mindset. Your discipline, your love life, your legacy, all of it, mindset. And the moment you take full ownership of that is the moment your excuses become irrelevant. You don't need more time. You don't need better conditions. You don't need approval. You need mastery of the mind. And that mastery, it begins with choice. Not once, every moment, every thought, every time the old pattern whispers its familiar song, you must choose not to dance. You must choose silence. You must choose strength. You must choose the thought that aligns with the you you're becoming, not the version you've already buried. Because this is how transformation happens. Not in massive leaps, not in emotional highs, but in microscopic mental pivots. The kind nobody sees, the kind nobody applauds, the kind where you say no to a thought that would have owned you a year ago. That is victory. That is power. That is how a human being becomes unrecognizable to their former self. And soon, the life around you will shift. It won't be magic. It won't be luck. It will be the natural consequence of a mind that no longer tolerates anything less than alignment with truth. You won't have to fake confidence. You'll live in it. You won't have to chase clarity. You'll create it. You won't have to beg for peace. You'll become it. Because now, you don't just control your mind. You own it. And that, right there, is the beginning of everything. So now you walk through the world with a new kind of silence. Not the silence of uncertainty, but the silence of someone who no longer negotiates with chaos. The silence of someone who knows the battle was won the moment they claimed authority over their mind. You no longer need to scream to be heard. You no longer need to prove yourself in every room. You no longer need to defend your decisions to people who still wrestle with their own, because peace has become your platform. Discipline has become your compass. And clarity hard won. Battle-forged clarity has become your crown. You look around and realize most are still asleep. Not because they want to be, but because no one ever taught them how to wake up. No one ever told them that every toxic pattern, every cycle of sabotage, every moment of despair, all of it can be traced back to an untrained mind. And now, now you carry a responsibility, not just to build yourself, but to become the example. To live in such a way that your life speaks louder than their doubts. To walk with such focus that it calls others to rise just by watching you. Because this world doesn't need more noise. It needs more mental leaders. More people who think for themselves. More people who choose thoughts that build, not break. Who pause before reacting. Who create before consuming. Who remember every single day that your mind is not a mirror of circumstance, it is a creator of circumstance. And when you live like this, you start to see what's possible. Not just for you, but for everyone watching you, wondering if this level of control, this level of calm, this level of command is real. It is. It's not perfect. It's not easy, but it's yours because you earned it. You didn't wait for someone to fix your life. You didn't blame your past. You didn't drown in fear. You stood up. You stared your thoughts in the face and said, "You don't run me anymore." You repeated truth when it didn't feel true. You acted with power when your mind begged for comfort. You showed up again and again until the part of you that used to rule you had no choice but to bow. And now you are the ruler, the gatekeeper, the architect, the commander of your mind. And from here forward, everything you build, your wealth, your health, your impact, your legacy, will rest on the foundation you just forged. Not of concrete, not of steel, but of thought. Disciplined, directed, dominant. This is the new you. And this is how it all begins. Not with a plan, not with a perfect system, but with one bold final decision. I control my mind. And because I control my mind, I control my life. Confidence is not a feeling. It is a force, and it is built, not born. Most people are waiting to feel ready before they act, waiting for the perfect moment before they move, waiting for someone to hand them permission to be powerful. But confidence doesn't come from waiting. It doesn't come from comfort. It doesn't come from being told you're good enough. It comes from the grind, from the work, the effort, the sweat, the decision to show up consistently when no one else does. Confidence is built in silence. It's built in the dark. It's built in the decisions no one applauds. The early morning alarms, the cold showers, the quiet yes to discipline, and the loud no to distraction. It's built when you stop waiting for the world to believe in you and start proving to yourself who you really are. Because true confidence doesn't come from the outside, it is forged on the inside. You don't get confidence by being told you're enough. You get confidence by doing what others won't, by keeping your word to yourself, by becoming someone you respect. That's the difference. That's the edge. And that edge is available to anyone but accessed by very few because it requires radical ownership. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's a reputation, the reputation you have with yourself. If your inner voice can't trust your actions, your confidence will always be fake. If your daily choices contradict your deepest values, your energy will always feel out of sync. If you constantly betray your own word, your self-belief will rot no matter how loud you pretend to be. But here's the beautiful truth. Confidence is not fixed. It's not genetic. It's earned, day by day, decision by decision. It's built by doing the hard things, not for applause, but for alignment. Because alignment is where confidence lives. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in sync, you feel unstoppable. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are whole. Confidence is the natural byproduct of congruence, of knowing that who you say you are is who you actually are. And you don't need to shout about it, because real confidence is silent. It doesn't need to convince. It simply commands. So how do you build it? You start by mastering your mind because your thoughts are the foundation of everything. Most people live with a hostile internal environment. They speak to themselves with judgment, with doubt, with fear, and then wonder why their actions feel hesitant. You cannot act boldly while thinking like a victim. You cannot move with power while feeding yourself powerlessness. Your internal dialogue is either reinforcing your greatness or reinforcing your limitations. Train your thoughts like you train your body, with repetition, with precision, with intensity. Speak to yourself like someone worth listening to. And not just when you feel strong, especially when you feel weak. That's when it matters most. Because confidence is not built in your highlight reels. It's built in your darkest moments. When you're tired, when you're doubting, when you feel behind. That's where the real version of you gets sculpted. And the voice you choose to listen to in those moments will shape the life you build. So speak strength. Think forward. Flood your mind with declarations that ignite your spirit, not because they sound nice, but because they pull you back into alignment. And from the mind, you move into belief. Not just surface belief, deep belief. Belief that doesn't shake when people question you. Belief that doesn't shrink when failure knocks. Belief that doesn't bend when the process slows down. Because belief is not just a mindset, it is a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows under tension. You want deeper belief? Do what scares you. Take the risk. Make the call. Take the stage. Speak your truth. Try, fail, and try again. Belief grows every time you walk into discomfort and walk out alive. You don't need proof before you believe. You need belief before you find proof. You lead with belief and the world responds. Because the world follows energy, not words. And the most magnetic energy on earth is unapologetic belief in oneself. Not arrogance, not ego, but a calm, grounded knowing. I've done the work. I've faced the fire. I've earned the right to believe in who I am. You want to build unstoppable confidence? Earn it. Build it. Step by step. With practices that align your habits to your highest self. With rituals that remind your nervous system that you are in control. With routines that hardwire certainty into your bones. Because confidence is not hype, it's habit. And the more you live in alignment with your values, the louder your confidence speaks without you saying a word. Because confidence is not volume, it's vibration. It's not in how loud you talk, it's in how clearly you move. A confident person walks differently. They enter a room and bring a frequency that silences noise. Not because they're better than others, but because they've fought for alignment. They've battled their demons and chosen their identity, not borrowed it from culture, not stolen it from trends, but built it in solitude. And to build confidence, you need to build clarity. You cannot be confident about a direction you haven't defined. You cannot act boldly toward a target you haven't marked. Clarity is power. Clarity is speed. Clarity is what turns effort into impact. Most people are uncertain, not because they lack talent, but because they lack vision. They're floating through life, reacting, drifting, hoping, but the confident are builders. They don't wait to be assigned purpose. They declare it. They don't ask for the blueprint. They become the architect. Confidence loves a plan. Not a rigid one, but a compelling one. A vision you wake up for. A mission that electrifies your steps. A target that sharpens your focus and tells your energy exactly where to go. And once you have that, you protect it with ruthless discipline. Because confidence without discipline is a house with no foundation. It might look good, but the moment pressure comes, it crumbles. But when you stack discipline day after day, rep after rep, you create a structure that can't be shaken. Discipline is confidence's twin flame. The two are inseparable. Because you cannot feel confident in a life where you constantly break promises to yourself. You cannot fake self-trust. You must earn it. Discipline is how you earn it. Every time you rise when it's easier to rest. Every time you choose integrity over impulse. Every time you follow through without fanfare. You tell your nervous system, I am who I say I am. And over time, the voice of doubt, it gets drowned out by data, evidence, reps, results. And you no longer try to be confident. You are. It becomes your state, not your performance. Because confidence doesn't mean you think you'll always win. It means you trust yourself to respond, no matter the outcome. That's deeper. That's rooted. That's real. And it bleeds into everything. How you speak, how you walk, how you handle conflict, how you approach love, money, leadership, business. You move from fear-based survival to power-based precision. And that shift is everything. It's the shift from, I hope they like me, to, I hope I honor who I am. From, I don't want to fail, to, I want to find my edge. From, what will they think, to, what does my future self require? Because when you live for the applause, your confidence dies in silence. But when you live for the standard, you don't need the noise. You wake up knowing, I show up because I'm becoming. I do the work because I'm becoming. I face the fear because I'm becoming. And that is unstoppable. Because becoming is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. It's not a breakthrough. It's a daily bricklaying ritual of who you choose to be when no one's looking, when no one's clapping, when no one's calling your name. That's where confidence is carved. In the quiet reps. In the habits you stack before dawn. In the voice you refuse to betray at midnight. You see, most people confuse confidence with results. They say, I'll feel confident when I get the job, the body, the money, the recognition. But confidence built on outcome is always fragile. Because the moment the outcome shifts, the confidence collapses. But confidence that's built on identity, that lasts. Because it's not, I'm good because I won today. It's, I'm good because I showed up like a champion even when the scoreboard said nothing. That's power. That's maturity. That's internal freedom. Confidence is never about certainty in the environment. It's certainty in your ability to respond to any environment. And how do you build that? You take bold action constantly, repeatedly, without needing certainty before you move. Because action is the antidote to insecurity. Every time you act in alignment with your future identity, you cast a vote for that version of you. And enough votes, that becomes who you are. You become the person who acts not because they feel confident, but because they've decided to move anyway. And that decision to move in the face of fear, to act when it's uncomfortable, that is the birthplace of confidence. That's why confidence doesn't feel like hype. It feels like peace. It's the peace of knowing I can be trusted. I can be counted on. I am becoming someone solid. And when that peace takes root, you stop seeking external validation. You don't need applause. You are the echo. Your life speaks louder than your lips ever could. You move with gravity, with precision, with calm, calculated direction. Because you know who you are, and who you are is under construction, on purpose, by design. So you don't compete. You don't chase. You don't beg. You build. You become. You evolve, regardless of the pace of those around you. And that makes you unstoppable. Because people with real confidence don't need to dominate others. They've already mastered themselves. They've already won the internal war. And when that battle is won, the outside world becomes a playground. The opinions lose weight. The pressure becomes play. The fear becomes a familiar friend that reminds you you're growing again. So you lean in. You don't shrink. You stretch. You step in. You stand taller. Not because you know the outcome, but because you know who you are becoming through the outcome. And when you lead your life from that place, there is no ceiling. There is only the next level. And the next. And the next. Then let's go deeper, because confidence, true confidence, doesn't peak. It expands. It grows in layers. And every new layer demands more truth, more alignment, more intentionality, more depth. Because you can't build unstoppable confidence on surface habits. It's built in the layers beneath, in the standards you set when no one's watching, in the boundaries you enforce when it would be easier to bend, in the discipline you carry when compromise is more convenient. Confidence is born in self-respect, and self-respect isn't given, it's earned. You earn it by saying no to the things that used to own you, by walking away from people who drain your purpose, by choosing structure over stimulation, by prioritizing your vision over your vices. That's how you begin to respect yourself again. That's how you earn back the trust you lost in seasons where you quit on yourself. And the more you trust yourself, the less approval you need from the world. You move from dependence to dominion, from seeking acceptance to setting the standard. You don't follow trends. You become the blueprint. Because the most powerful kind of confidence isn't built through performance. It's built through presence. A presence that radiates from the man or woman who knows. I may not be perfect, but I'm not hiding anymore. I may not be there yet, but I'm on purpose every single day. And that kind of presence can't be faked. You feel it in someone's tone. You see it in their eyes. You sense it in their silence. Because the most confident people rarely need to say much. They speak less because they are more. They don't explain themselves because their life explains it all. So if you want that kind of confidence, stop performing. Start becoming. Do the work that no one applauds. Heal the wounds that no one sees. Discipline the habits that no one tracks. Stand in front of the mirror and own the parts of you that still make you flinch. Because real confidence isn't loud. It's liberated. It's the freedom of being fully you without needing anyone else's permission. And that level of freedom only comes when you stop betraying yourself. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, every time you scroll through your life instead of stepping into it, every time you hide your truth just to keep the peace, you trade a piece of your confidence for a moment of comfort. But the ones who build unstoppable confidence, they stop making that trade. They walk away from the temporary highs of fitting in for the permanent power of standing tall. They don't fear rejection. They respect themselves too much to conform. Because when you know who you are, you don't need a seat at anyone's table. You bring your own chair. You build your own room. You become your own foundation. And the world will try to test that with rejection, with resistance, with silence, with seasons of invisibility. Good. Let it. Because every test is an opportunity to prove. I don't just believe in myself when things are easy. I believe in myself because I've become someone worth believing in. That's confidence. Not the kind they sell you on social media. The kind you forge in discomfort, in discipline, in devotion to who you know you're called to be. And if you can hold that, if you can live, that there is no environment that can break you, no criticism that can derail you, no failure that can define you, because you've built something deeper than hype. You've built you. Then let's bring the fire all the way through, because this is the final stretch, the place where most stop short. But you finish what you start, because that's what confidence does. It closes the gap between intention and execution, between I should and I did, between maybe someday and I made it real. Confidence is not just the byproduct of belief. It is the consequence of follow-through. It's the result of doing hard things again and again until your nervous system understands. We don't run anymore. We rise. You rise when it's inconvenient. You rise when it's quiet. You rise when you're tired, when you're doubting, when everything in you says, just take it easy. And that moment, that tiny, private, unseen moment, that's where the real version of you is born. Because confidence is not built when it's easy. It's built when it's easier to quit and you still choose to move. That's the gap. That's the edge. That's the standard. And when you live by that standard long enough, you become undeniable. Not because you screamed louder, but because your results started to whisper things your ego never could. Because eventually the habits compound, the mindset compounds, the identity compounds, and what was once forced becomes fluid. You no longer try to be disciplined, you are. You no longer try to believe, you embody belief. You no longer wish you were confident. You've built it into your bloodstream. It's in your walk, in your breath, in your decision-making, in the way you say no to what used to tempt you, in the way you say yes to what you know you must do, even when no one's watching. That is the real work. The hard, quiet, unsexy, consistent, sacred work of becoming someone you admire. And when you admire who you're becoming, you don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't need external anything, because everything you need is already activated on the inside. You don't feel lost anymore. You don't feel small. You don't feel like you're waiting to be chosen. You have chosen yourself. You have looked your fears in the face and said, You no longer get to drive this life. You've looked at your excuses and said, "You've had enough years. I'm taking the wheel now." You've looked at your old identity and said, "Thank you for the lessons, but I am no longer available for limitation." And now you walk different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. That's what unstoppable confidence creates. A version of you that doesn't shrink when it's dark. A version of you that commands light wherever you go. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. If you're waiting for someone to push you, look in the mirror. If you're waiting for perfect timing, you've waited long enough. Now is the time. Today is the day. This is the moment you move like someone who knows who they are. You've trained for this. You've suffered for this. You've built the foundation brick by brick. Now go. Build the business. Speak the truth. Lead the people. Live the life. Because you are no longer held back by fear. You are led forward by fire. And that fire, that's not hype. That's not fluff. That is confidence you earned. So, hold your head high. Move with power. Speak with precision. And live with so much conviction that your very presence gives others permission to believe again. Because you are the example now. And the world will rise to meet the standard you refuse to lower.